ቅዱስ 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 እግዚአብሔር ጸባኦት አምላክነ።
Hello everyone, my name is Miriam and this program is brought to you by Mahibere Kidusan broadcast service from American Center English service here at the Washington DC studio. Today we have part 2 of the discussion regarding the key concepts we need to understand about fasting so we can use it effectively and benefit from it as well. May God grant us the wisdom to understand His teaching. Let us watch the discussion. Thank you for joining us again, and this will be a continuation of the discussion we started last week. And today, as we did last week, we have Diakon Gorgorios and we have Diakon Nebiyou with us today, and we'll be continuing the discussion we started last time about fasting, how we should be fasting, the benefits of fasting, and much more. So please stay tuned. For the next question, I'd like to ask Diakon Gorgorios. It follows with what you have been saying, and it's also that we need to understand the purpose, right? Why we are fasting whenever we fast, because we can't just fast because we are told to fast, right? And especially when a parent tells their kids to fast, and then the kid just fasts, then at some point the kid is going to feel he'll just want to stop fasting, right? Because he just doesn't see the points, or she doesn't see the points of fasting. And so it's very essential to understand why we are fasting and the benefits that comes with the fasting as well. And so how it can change our lives if we do it correctly as well. And there are biblical stories with this, and not just biblically, but our fathers also, when they fast, we see how they fasted and the benefits that came with their fast, and how it helped not only them, but also us right now. We benefited from their fast as well. And just if you can touch on that, Diakon Gorgorios, will be great.
Thank you. Great question as well. Why do we fast? Is a lot of times as us by the youth, and this is a generation that asks why. So everything is, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? So it's important for us to actually give them a reasonable answer, a logical answer that they understand, and help them apply whatever it is we're telling them to do in their spiritual life. So a really good question. So I see 3 aspects, or 3 reasons, or 3 benefits as to why we need to be fasting. 1, as a benefit of the flesh. 2, it's a spiritual virtue. And 3, gives you a spiritual strength that you have never had before. Firstly, I want to talk about the benefits of the flesh. So if we were to eat all throughout the year just meat and dairy and all these things, we'll be unhealthy. There is a reason as to why America is the most healthiest, with 62% of obesity. That's a horrible percentage to see. That means we're not taking care of the actual body, or the temple of the Holy Spirit. St. Paul talks about our body as if it's the dwelling place of God. So when we say taking care of the body, it's not just, from inside out, but from outside in. So taking your care of your body, it's important. You've been given this body because you don't own your body. This is what the scripture tells us. You don't own your own body. Everything about you is purchased by the blood of God. This is some important thing that we need to understand. Even nowadays, even if you look at it scientifically, a lot of people are going on this culture of going vegan or vegetarian. This is so that they can become more healthy and not others avoid, not killing animals and that good stuff. But the science world even tells you it's important for you to diet in this manner so that you become healthy and you live longer. So this is This our fathers already knew this way before. God already gave us this law even way before in the Old Testament. This is one of the laws that God gave to Adam, right? So avoiding certain food actually helps your physical fitness. So when you're physically fit, when you're spiritually fit, when your soul is fit, you become this complete person, and you fulfill what it means to be conformed in the image of the Son. And this is what St. Paul says. When we conform to the image of Christ, then we are fulfilling. We become a new creation, the creation that God wants us to be. So our flesh being fit is really essential. Secondly, it's a spiritual virtue. It's a spiritual virtue because it's a law given to us by God, like I mentioned in Genesis as well, when he said, "Do not eat from the tree." It's just a very simple law. Also, we see it like my brother Diakon Nebiyou mentioned. Christ fasted, and he was able to face temptation. He was able to defeat temptation. It gives you a power. It gives you control. It's about the principle. It's about the discipline. It's about the power that you receive through the fasting. How powerful you will be. Here is the world telling you you can't live without food. Here's the world telling you you can't live without music. Here's the world telling you you can't live with certain things. And you are saying, no, 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 no. I'm not going to conform to the world, but I'm going to be renewed by the Spirit of the Holy Spirit. That's exactly where we need to be as a spiritual beings with this spiritual virtue. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift given to us by God, like my brother Dekwan Nebiyou mentioned. So there is no other virtue than fasting. And then lastly, it strengthens your spirit when you are strong in the spirit, because we see it happen in all the prophets, right? Like we saw Moses, Elijah, we saw Enoch, and we saw Ezra as well. And we saw it in Daniel's when he fasted. He said, I avoided dairy, I avoided meat, and no wine touched my mouth. And this is the way he fasted. And then we see, like you mentioned as well, King David fasting. My body was actually feeble from fasting. This is the way we need to fast. They were actually strong in their spirit as well. You get certain strength when you are fasting. And Daniel chapter 10, it actually says the three kids and Daniel gained in wisdom. This is like something that we need to seek as well, the wisdom of God. This is exactly what Solomon asked for and received, and he became the wisest man to ever exist. We always look at Proverbs and Ecclesiastics as the greatest books in the Bible. We really enjoy reading them. Why? Because he received wisdom from God. How did those three kids and how did King Solomon receive this wisdom? Through fasting and prayer. This strengthened you, the spirit that you have within you. And then we become like the angels and the saints that are in the heavens. That of course the angels, they do not eat food. This is the benefit. Everything about them is praising God and glorifying God, and that's it. They don't need food or drink, and that is because this prayer and praise becomes food. So when we get to the next level, when we get to the kingdom of God, there is no food. So right now we are receiving the blessing that they have, and then we're acting as if we are part of them. Understand what I mean? So this is exactly where we need to be spiritually strong. And lastly, also to mention, I believe in Acts chapter 7, verse 53, where Saint Stephen was talking to the Pharisees, and he said, you received the gift from the angels and you did not keep it. And that gift was actually the lifestyle of the angels, where they praise and fast all the time, but they did not receive this at all. In fact, they actually destroyed the covenant that they were given from their forefathers, from the prophet. So when we grow in the spirit, everything about us becomes uplifting. We become in control. Our soul becomes in control, directs us in the right path. Take a look at Saint Peter. Saint Peter, for example, Christ was walking on water, and he wanted to do the very same thing. And then Christ said, "Come to me," right? And then Saint Peter started walking. He was walking in spirit. This is what the Bible means when it means walk in the spirit, not in the flesh. So he started walking on water as well. But the moment doubt crept into his heart, he started drowning. Why? At first, of course, he was walking to show him when you walk in spirit, of course, but when you doubt, you drown. You understand? So when we walk in spirit, when our spirit is strengthened, we can walk through anything, let alone water. We can walk through fire, which is this world right now. It's in shambles and it's just in a horrible condition. We can walk through it and get to where we need to be. It gives us a spiritual strength that we need.
Yeah, thank you, Diakon Gorgorios. We need to walk in the spirit, right? We shouldn't have any doubt, as you said. We shouldn't have any doubt, and to become more a saint, like we need to do what they did, right? We need to look at their life and ask ourselves, how can I imply what they have done in my life, and how can I benefit from their life, right? We should need to look at their life and see how we can change our life, right? That's one of the benefits that we gain through listening to their stories or reading their stories. And you mentioned a lot of examples from the Bible and from the prophets, and we need to look at their life and to improve our lives as well, and we need to walk in the spirit. Diakon Nebiyou, what would you like to add on that? And what benefits can
Uh,
we get from fasting?
yeah, I mean, the Gorgorios actually put it in a very, very good way. I just want to add 2 points. I want to take you back to the previous question because I just remembered something when Gorgorios was talking. Today, right, there's this option that I would like to say. I mean, so if you think of the devil, right, the devil is always trying to find ways to deceive us. Okay, the devil does not come as he is, but because if you see the devil, you would want to be with him, right? Therefore, you would always want to have different ways and different things to deceive us and to actually change the truth, right? One example I can give you is so the story of Noah. If you think of the story of Noah, God gave Noah the rainbow as a promise, right? As a promise for his salvation, as a promise that he was saved from the water, and the boat saved him and everything, right? The story of Noah, we think of the rainbow, but today the rainbow has changed and it has different meaning. So we know what the rainbow is today, right? And the same thing happens when it comes to fasting. See, now there's this choice of food, vegan food, right? So there's vegan cheese now, and there's vegan meat. There's vegan. I mean, there's even vegan eggs. I mean, that's very surprising. I've seen that. So you thinking you're fasting and also eating vegan cheese, that's not right. Okay? So the whole purpose of fasting is to actually avoid it, not to find a way around it, right? So that's the devil trying to bring things and deceive us and change the whole definition of fasting. So I just remembered that, and I just want to put that out before going to the benefits. So when it comes to the purpose and the benefits of fasting, I mean, the only reason we fast is one way is to actually benefit spiritually, and the other way is uh, we love God, right? So we're trying to express that we love Him. That's one purpose, and that's actually the biggest purpose of fasting. If you think about it, so for example, in our lives today, we give up things for the people, for the sake of people we love, right? I would probably give up my position because of this person. I would probably give up my appointment because of this person, right? So we're trying to give up whatever ties us down to this world for the sake of God. Okay, that's the whole understanding of fasting. We love Him so much, we love God so much, we want to get close to Him so much. We don't really care about food. Okay, we don't really care about our comfort in this world. We don't really care about our lives and all the satisfactions we get from money and from houses and everything like that. So the purpose of fasting is to actually express love. So if you think about the monastery, the monasteries and the monks that we've seen in the previous lives, right? The saints. If you study their lives, they fasted throughout the year. I mean, if you imagine, can you imagine, like they fasted throughout the year, not even food, but they would fast from everything. See, they wouldn't eat anything except for the weekends. And what they eat on the weekends is like piece of fruits and piece of lives and stuff like that, right? So there must be a bigger purpose than leaving and avoiding food, right? So they did it because they love Him so much. I mean, there's if you read Father Macarius' life, the Macarius the Egyptian, right? His life, he says this. So if you love God so much, like if you love God so much, you would not want to spend a single moment without talking to Him, without spending time with Him. We don't want to divert to something else, but you would want to stay with Him as much as you can. And the way we do it is through fasting. And believe me or not, when you fast, it is very easy to pray. Okay? And a fasting stomach, it's super easy to pray. But if you have a full stomach, then it's super hard to pray. Because why? At that point, you want to sleep, right? At that point, you don't want to prostrate. At that point, you can't think of anything else except for sleeping, except for your tiresomeness and stuff. So, us fasting is actually expressing love towards God. And by expressing love towards God, you benefit in the spiritual way. then you get more spiritual. Yeah, your soul is over your body now, so now you can do miracles. Why do the saints do miracles? The only reason they do miracles, I mean, Gorgorios just said it too. Peter was actually walking in the spirit, right? When you are in the spirit, then it is not impossible. I mean, it's not hard to stop the sun, as as Iyasu did, right? It is not hard to actually bring people from the dead, as Samuel did. So the all the miracles the saints did, all the miracle stuff that we hear about, about we read and hear in the church, it is done through the spiritual life. It is done so that they're very close. I mean, it's done because they are very, very close to God. And the way we get very close to God is by expressing our love, by expressing our wanting, our desire to be close to Him. And the way you do it is through fasting and to give up things in the world. And that ties you down to the world.
You need to give up things, right? As you said, you need to give up the worldly thing, the flesh, what we do for our flesh. We need to give that up, as the prophets did, and as our fathers did. We need to give those up, and so that in order to be closer to God, in order to grow our spirit, our soul. Yes, and as you first mentioned, when we talk about food, when we talk about fasting, especially here, there are a lot of substitutes for meat, or as you said, egg, or any other foods, right? That vegans, the people who are vegan can eat, or people who are fasting can eat. It's not actually meat, but it might even taste like meat, but it's not meat, so we can eat it. But as you said, we shouldn't be eating it, because then we're kind of losing the purpose of fasting. We need to ask ourselves, why did I fast from the beginning, right? It's not just to stop eating, restricting ourselves from eating the food, but it also has other benefits, as we said, like the spiritual benefit that we gain, right? We get closer to God. But if we have another meal that tastes the same as the meat or the burger that we would have ate, then again, what is the purpose of us fasting, right? If we're not feeling any difference, if we're not feeling the hunger, as we previously said, then we need to ask ourselves, why am I fasting? Yeah. And for the next question, I'd like to focus on the challenges that we face, especially when we're living outside Ethiopia, outside our country. Then we might be faced with some challenges, like, for example, food. We might have less vegan food, or food that we can eat. So if we were living in Ethiopia, then it would be easier, especially because of the community, right? Everyone around you is fasting. It's known that it's fasting. It's a fasting season right now. But here in America, the people that you're surrounded with, your friends, your colleagues, might not know about you, about the fasting, about your religion, and so it becomes a challenge, right? It becomes a really big challenge to fast and to stay spiritual in these circumstances. And so, Diakon Gorgorios, what can you say about the food, for example? I want to focus on the food right now. So what can people do? Because I know a lot of people that do not fast because they have a lack of food that they can eat when they're fasting. So what advices do you have for that? Diakon Gorgorios?
I honestly don't think we have a limited option of meals that we can eat during fasting season, because, like that whenever you mentioned, there's a lot of vegan option nowadays, and that's one of the poll I did as well on my social media, and then that was one of the issues that a lot of people had, which is like not having a variety of food. But truly, if you look at the vegan culture, you have a lot of options out there to do, and then you have vegetarian options that a lot of people have also, like it's vegan as well. So we have the variety. It's just about choosing and picking, your your choices. It's about researching. It's about doing it. You don't even have to go out and buy vegan stuff because vegans tend to be very expensive as well. So it's a real struggle. It's not like when I came here to America, which was 15 years ago. That's a long time. 15 years ago, we didn't have this vegan option. Everything was, scarce for us. We couldn't eat anything at school. We didn't. I really struggled with it when I was in college during fasting season. All I ate was like bread and salad. I remember the cafeteria guy would always be like, "Hey, here comes the bread guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's me," And then he would just give me like a piece of bread and then like a whole bunch of salad with like nothing on it. And then I was like known for the bread guy during all throughout like fasting season, and like as you start developing like certain sicknesses as well, like we call it jaguara or heartburn or something. That's where I developed jaguara because like all I ate was bread, so it was a real problem. But nowadays, even when you are in college, you have vegan options. That's the beauty of America. Now they adopt new cultures to it, and now we have these vegan options that we need to use. So of course, like that Nebiyou mentioned, it's a real problem if you're just substituting, the name and then you still have burger and all that good stuff. But for beginner fasters, I think there's three levels to fasting. There is beginner fasters, and those who have been, developing in the fasting, and then those who progressed even highly so in the fasting area. That is the monks that we're talking about. The beginners, I think because to this day our synod or our institutions, our archdiocese hasn't said really anything about these vegan options. As a newcomer into the church, as a new beginner to the faith, I think these vegan options should be okay to start off your spiritual journey. But for those of us who grew up within the church fasting, these substitutions shouldn't be a factor at all. So we should be aware of what fasting should be, and then we should avoid all these things. We can make our own food. We can make our own salad. We can make our misset and stuff like that. And then you should grow from where you were. Right? If last year, if you're eating all bayanet like of Mr. Shiro and Alicha and all these things, cut it down to Shiro this year. I don't know, like how far have you come in your spiritual journey? What did you learn from last year that you're gonna put on this year? Like you don't see your growth unless you actually change. If you do this very same thing, then you're not really growing. That's why our spiritual fathers, the monks, are really inspiring. They are up there. They're like they're on third level to the point they don't even eat anything like that. Whenever you mentioned, like, or barely eat anything, leaves and like kolo and little cracker stuff like injera and stuff like that. So that's the third level. So we need to progress in this level rather than just. But this idea of there is no option, that's I don't think we know it's not true. To be honest, we know it's not true. We have options. We have options.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and so yeah, for example, when there's a vegan cake, right? When there's a birthday, for example, and it's a fasting season, then there's a fasting cake, vegan cake that we buy, right? But I hear some people saying that they're not gonna eat the vegan cake, even though it is vegan, because they just don't want to do it because they're fasting. And again, they ask themselves, as you said, there are different levels of our spiritual life, right? There's a different level. I'm in a different level than someone else, and so their expectation of themselves when they're fasting is different than mine. And so yeah, we should definitely keep that in our minds. And for beginners, as you said, it's very normal for them to eat the vegan food, right? Especially because they're beginners. But as they go along and they progress throughout their spiritual life, then they become more aware of the things that they should do and should not do. And their expectation when they're fasting is also changes, right? Throughout the time frame that we fast, and throughout the time frame in our life as well. And also, yeah, when we, especially when we come straight from, when we're new to America, a lot of people face challenges not just with the food, but with also the peers and our friends that we go with, right? And in school, for example, the friends that we surround ourselves with, that also can be a challenge because they don't know what fasting is, right? They might not know what fast you're fasting. They might not know anything about it. But in Ethiopia or in Eritrea, it would be very easy to fast because everyone knows, right? Everyone knows you're fasting and they respect it. They respect it as well. But here, they might even joke about it. They might even joke about you when you're fasting because they just don't have the concept of why you're fasting and the reason you're fasting. And so, Diakon Nebiyou, if you would like, if you can give us advice on that and teach us more about that, it would be great.
Yeah, so I had the privilege of living in Iowa for almost 5 years, and it was not an easy life. I want to say I'm not even exaggerating when I say this, but I want to say we were only 5 or 6 of us Habeshas in the whole state of Iowa, because there was no church, there was no blacks at all, and not even Africans or any Ethiopians, right? So fasting became a very, very hard thing to do because you live in a dorm and you have no option of cooking food because you have no stove, you have no all the equipments to cook, right? Because you're only signed up to eat from the dorms, I mean from the cafeteria and the universities, and that's the only option you have. And believe me or not, when I lived in Iowa, when I went to the university, sometimes throughout the week, sometimes they would have this vegan option, and most of the time they don't. So you would go around the cafeteria trying to find food, but there was no option for us, right? So we'd always complain, we'd always talk about this, and I have a friend in DC. She would always tell me a very, very good option is to put a potato in a microwave and just eat it with ketchup, right? And I would suggest that. Try it out. It's not bad. I've survived almost 5 years with that. It's very good. The thing is, I want to come to the whole question, right? So not living in Ethiopia or not living in Eritrea should not be a reason, because on Judgment Day you can't tell Christ, "Well, have left Ethiopia, so I can't fast." I was living in DC, and I was living in Europe, and that's why I really fast. That's not a real valid reason for you not to fast. Okay, I want to say if you look at the story of Daniel, right? Daniel and the 3 youth. So they were taken in captivity to Babylon, right? But they were not eating from the king's food. That's what it says. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. It says Daniel was very, very, very careful not to eat from the king's food or not to drink from his wine, because it would defile him, right? That's not right things for the Israelites to eat at that point. So you living in country or you not living in the same environment where you used to live is not a reason for you to not to fast. Okay, that's one thing we should understand. And another thing I want to say is, the more you struggle, the higher the reward is. Okay, the more you struggle, because if I fast today, I live in Oakland, right? I'm in Oakland, so I'm surrounded with family, friends, church, and me fasting, and a person in Iowa or in Kentucky or this places, right? It's very hard, difficult to fast. Our rewards are not the same because you struggled a lot and you deserve a lot. So God is there to look and judge, right? So therefore, He will judge in right and truthful way. Okay. So you should always think of the reward, as Diakon Gorgorios said. We should always aim. We should always look at the target when we live in our spiritual life, right? So we don't do randomly. We don't fast randomly. We fast for the reason of getting blessings and getting higher in our spiritual life. And if that's your target, and the faster way to get there is to struggle through fasting. Okay. One thing I learned from this monk in the Coptic Church, he told me martyrdom, right? So we know Samaritanate. We always, whenever we think of Samaritanate, whenever we think of Samaritans, Samaritans are just people who actually died for the sake of Christ, for the sake of their religion. But there are mini or smaller martyrdoms all around the place. Okay, that's fasting, and that could be marriage, right? You're giving up your will, or you're giving up living life as a single person, and you're now married, and then you're staying in this life. That's martyrdom. That's one way of martyrdom. So there's many kinds of martyrdom, and giving up food or struggling in this kind of environment to fast is martyrdom. So it's very highly rewarded. I want to say it's very, very highly rewarded. And then remember Matthew chapter 5, verse 46, our Lord Christ says this, for if you love those who loves you, what reward do you have, right? Do not tax collectors do the same. Remember this. Everyone can fast in this kind of environment. If you're surrounded with friends, if you're surrounded with family, if you're surrounded with church, and believe me, anyone can fast. Okay, but the question is, when you are outside of this environment, do you fast? And if you are fasting in that kind of environment, then you are very good. You're in a very good shape, and you should get more rewards. I mean, you would receive more rewards. And one last thing I want to add is, I don't want to neglect everyone, because I can't say this. We can't actually say this because we don't know everyone's story, and we don't know everyone's life, and we don't know everyone's situation, right? So I can't, when Diakon Gorgorios says that we should fast and we should always struggle through fasting and we should never break fast and everything, we're not saying God does not understand your situation. God do understand the situation. But one thing you should understand is you should always talk to your spiritual father, your confession father. That's how the early Christians did it, right? That's how the early Christians lived their life. Today, this age, we always talk to them whenever we need to do confession. That's not how it's supposed to be. Spiritual father is supposed to go, supposed to know everything about us and our lives. Before even buying a house, you should talk to your spiritual father. Before even buying a car, you should talk to your spiritual father. That's how the early Christians did it, okay? And we should follow that path. And people who are struggling in this kind of situation today, people who are struggling with no food to eat, and people struggling with the environment they live in. Some works would force you to eat certain kinds of food. I know this for a fact. So if you're in this kind of situation, talk to your spiritual father, and the spiritual father would guide you and will tell you what to do. And that's how it should be. Okay.
Yeah, very, very, very important points there. And we need to, our spiritual father, regardless of the situations we're in, right? It's always helpful and very useful to have a spiritual father, because they help us during these times, during the hard times that we are facing, the situations that we might be in. A spiritual father can help you, and they're there to support you, right? And whatever situations that you might be in. And looking at the target, as you both said, is very essential. Looking at the purpose of what you're doing, and whenever you're faced with a challenge, ask yourself, why did I start this from the beginning, right? And keep looking at the target and aim for accomplishing the purpose, the goal that you set up for yourself, right? And when you, as we mentioned, when you're fasting, there will be challenges that we will be facing, but we should always keep looking at the target and move forward, right? And when I first came here, when I first came to the US, there were barely any Black people in the high school that I was in, let alone Ethiopians. And it was very challenging to fast because we ate together, right? We spent the whole day together. And it was became a really big challenge to fast, especially when I tried to fast with the time, right, until 12 or until 3. Then it really became challenging. But as you said, that we all should always tell ourselves what we will be gaining is much more when we're very comfortable. It's when we're challenged with these challenges, we will be gaining a lot of benefits at the end. And we should always tell ourselves that, as Diakon Nebiyou also mentioned, we should always look at the target. And as Diakon Gorgorios also said, we need to move forward and always stay on the path, right? Stay on the path that we set up. And our spiritual fathers and other people that can also help us, we need to communicate with them as well, so that they can help us during these times as well. And the reward at the end is a lot, right? We shouldn't take a step backwards because of the challenge we are facing. We should tell ourselves, we should be happy actually that we are facing a challenge, because it's through that challenge that we will be gaining something big at the end, right? Not just fasting, but even when we're praying, there are a lot of challenges that we face when we're praying, right? Even our daily prayers. So either it's in the morning or at the nights, if we feel tired, we tell ourselves, no, I don't want to pray right now because I'll do it tomorrow, right? There are challenges that we face, but if we tell ourselves, through this challenge, if I get up right now and if I pray, I will be gaining much more because I overcame the challenge that I am facing right now, right? So there's a reward, a big benefit waiting for us if we pass the challenges that we are currently facing. And so thank you very much for both of you for these answers and answering it very beautifully and for all the important things that you both mentioned. And if there are any last comments or advice that you want to give, I would like to give you the mic. Diakon Gorgorios, what advice, comments would you like to give?
I believe everything was said enough and in a very thorough way. This fasting season, like I mentioned, the one thing that I just want to make sure we remember is that fasting season is not a season to just stop whatever wrongful things that we were doing, but to begin our spiritual journey and to remember to maintain the same energy that we had in the fasting season all throughout the year and become a better Christian for it, and reflect back at every beginning and end, where we were when we started the fast and how we ended it, and where we want to be in the next fast. And then when that fasting season comes, we want to reflect back at the last year, where we were and where we need to be as well. So it's a time of progression. So this is where we need to grow spiritually.
So definitely a time of progression for our spiritual life, and we should use this time very wisely. We should also be thankful to have this time, right? Because as we mentioned, a lot of people did not have this time, did not have the things that we do have right now. But a lot of people are taking it for granted and are not using it to their best capability, right? We need to use them wisely. Diakon Nebiyou, what comments or advice do you have?
So as Dr. Gorgorios said, everything is said very well. But one thing I just want to add is we should all think of the season we are in today, right? So the time is very hard. Coronavirus and in the country, back home, the situation here in Ethiopia, and everything in the world today we hear is not a very nice thing to actually hear. So I would suggest when you fast, when you pray, pray for the world, pray for the people of Ethiopia, pray for the people of the world, because that's something we must do as a Christian, and that's something we should actually practice throughout this fasting period. And at the same time, I would like to challenge everyone, because from our discussion today, we've talked about the importance of fasting and how we should fast and what benefits we get. But I also want to challenge everyone who's listening to this program today. So if you're fasting, give charity. If you're fasting, pray more. Don't just fast from food, but also participate in the other spiritual benefits you could get from God, and that's how we should practice our fastings.
Thank you, Diakon Nebiyou, for summarizing it and telling us important points that we need to take from this discussion as well. And I hope everyone here watching this learned from this, and I hope you not only enjoyed it, but also will apply it in your life and in your life. And when you're fasting, I hope this also gave you a better understanding of what fasting is, what benefits you can get from the fasting, and also how we need to fast. We touched on a lot of important points, and Diakon Gorgorios and Diakon Nebiyou taught us a lot of key points that we need to understand and apply it to in our lives as well. And I really hope this helped everyone here. And I want to thank you again, Diakon Nebiyou and Diakon Gorgorios, for taking your time and teaching us on a very important topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us.
And that is the end of the discussion. Among the many things that were taught, we learned that when we fast, we don't just fast from food, but it's our whole body that should be fasting from what the flesh desires. But it's not just when we fast that we need to restrain from what the body desires, but it should be done in our everyday life. In other words, each day that we have in our life, it's a gift from God, and we should use it to ask for His forgiveness and get closer to Him by becoming more saint-like. May our brothers hear the word of life.
እግዚአብሔር ጸባኦት አምላክ